God wants us to be discerning people. He doesn't want us to just, okay, I'm just going to believe everything and drink the Kool-Aid. And that's why, quite frankly, that's why some of the greatest minds in the world have been and are Christians. I'll tell you, there was a tremendous birth of faith was in Houston at the Space Center during the flawed mission of Apollo 13. And I've heard stories from people that were there. These scientists, when you remember Tom Hanks, Apollo 13? No, he wasn't on Apollo. He was the movie, okay. Apollo 13 going to the moon, oxygen tank explodes in the service module, cripples the ship. Now they're just floating through space. Thank God they had already docked with and secured to the lunar landing module, because the lunar landing module had some life support capacity, but only for 2 men, not 3, which is what the crew was. And so they had to shut down the command module, and everything was getting cold, and they had to dump all their supplies in the lunar module, and then they had to get back to Earth. And what they had to do was, without the benefit of a computer guidance system, and by the way, computers back then were not nearly, as you know, were not nearly as powerful as computers today. They had to actually slingshot around the moon and use the trajectory and centrifugal force of the moon to get them back to Earth. Every scientist that worked for NASA knew it was a 1 in a million chance to get them back. Everybody knew that their odds to survive were minimal. They didn't know if they had the power. They didn't know if they literally had to manually fire the rocket engine on the thing that was intended to land on the moon to point them in the right direction to get back to Earth, and they did it manually. Didn't have computer guidance. They didn't know if when the command to service module exploded, they didn't know if it damaged the heat shield on the command module. You know, they come back thousands of degrees of heat through re-entry. They had no idea if any of that would hold up. They knew it was a 1 in a million chance. And after that happened, and when the chutes came out, and the capsule returned to Earth, and all 3 astronauts were alive, they said there was such a spiritual awakening at NASA. Literally hundreds of astrophysicists and astronauts gave their life to Christ because they knew it was only God that could have brought those astronauts back safely. So God's not asking us to check our brains at the door. Some of the greatest thinkers of all time were Christians. Some of the great scientists today are Christians. Great thinkers, great minds are Christians. No, we're not asked to check our faith at the door. We're asked to believe in the credible, documented, historical facts of evidence of Christianity.